Bridget, I'm so glad that you're here. I've been looking forward to this all weekend.
I actually have been looking forward to this too. I'm super excited to be here.
Okay, let's jump right in. So, um, can I ask you did what was it like when you got HIV and what did it teach you? Let's hear a little bit about your journey.
So, um, what did it teach me? It taught me that life is unpredictable. You never know what you're going to get,
Yeah.
right? And you can never be prepared for everything that life is going to throw at you.
Mm-hmm.
Um, I was diagnosed at 40.
Yeah.
So, this is a milestone for women. I was supposed to be free. I was supposed to
Mm.
be moving into this area of nothing bothered me and having really great sex.
Yes.
And
Yes.
instead, here we are with this brand new diagnosis and trying to figure out how to readjust my life and
Yeah.
what life is going to be.
Yeah.
So,
But because I was just thinking like when people get diagnosed, everyone deals with it differently. We're all very different. We're all individual. And I know for me, I spent many years what I call in hiding. I'm an extremist. Either I go so far undercover or I'm out. but
yeah,
but what it did kind of teach me is there's nowhere to hide. After years and years of hiding, I thought there's actually nowhere to hide. If I want to live on this earth and I want to live on this earth and be free and be me, I have to be, I have to embrace the whole of me.
yeah,
Did you,
absolutely.
how was that for you? Like when,
So, at some point you have to decide on your journey with HIV, either it's going to run you or you're going to run it. And that is where I had to kind of come to is I can spend the rest of my life
mm,
um worried about taking medication, worried
yeah,
about who's going to accept it or not accept it,
yeah,
worried about at 50, because I'm
yeah,
50 now,
yeah,
everything becomes like you get an ache or a pain or a bump or,
yeah,
hair comes out and it's like, is that the HIV or is that just general life?
yeah,
And
yeah,
you have to get to where you just live. You
yeah.
have to just live because living in fear or living in hiding or living worried about stigma is
Yeah.
not a life. You survive that way, but you don't thrive that way.
And you know what, Bridget, because I actually think it's so much bigger than HIV. I think HIV just shines the spotlight on us as individuals. Because I do wonder, I think to myself, would I have been the same person if I did not get this diagnosis? Who would I have been? Do you ask yourself that question?
I absolutely can positively tell you I would not be the person that I am had
Well,
I not
I
gotten
bet
this
you'd be a
diagnosis.
right bitch.
Like, right? Like I would not have become a nurse because I
Yeah,
didn't go to
yeah.
nursing school until after my diagnosis.
Ah,
I I've always been a little intuitive, but I think
yeah,
I understand people even more
yeah.
now on this side of the HIV diagnosis. But oh, for
Mm.
sure, I would not be who I am if it wasn't for it.
And do you know what? One of the biggest things, I just kind of thought about as you were talking.
Mm.
So, many, many years ago, you hear people talk about self-help books and looking inwardly and all that bollocks, as far as I was concerned years ago, because I was strong, because I was brave and I didn't cry and I got on with stuff and, all that stuff. And then the having to kind of understand who you are is it's a big deal, isn't it? Because you unravel a
It
lot.
is. Oh yeah. Yeah, it's and some people never do the work, right?
Yeah, yeah,
And doing the work is a choice.
yeah,
And sometimes because I've certainly, there's this an affirmation that says you can't be who you want to be and who you are at the same time.
yeah, yeah,
And so you have to like dig in and really look at yourself, and HIV makes you do that. Like,
Mm.
right. So for me, for example, I always thought of myself as being smart.
Yeah.
Like that was my thing.
Yeah.
But I would have other people tell me that I was pretty, or that men, or tell me
Yeah.
that I was sexy. And
Yeah.
all of a sudden, when I wasn't sexy anymore because of this diagnosis, I had to like really look at myself and say, okay, so are you as smart as you think you are? Is that
Yeah.
really? And thank God, yes, it is. But there's choices that you have to make as you go through the journey. And you look at yourself in ways you never have before, because other people look at you in ways that they never have before.
Yeah.
And so you have to find the balance.
That's so spot on. And, I'm just going to touch on what you just said there about sexuality, you know, um, even without HIV, looking at one's sexuality can be quite, challenging, I guess, sexuality
Yeah.
and culture, sexuality and misogyny, sexuality and being a Black woman, sexuality and your family. I mean, I'm not sure about your upbringing, but I know with my upbringing, I was brought up Catholic, and good girls get married, stay married, have a couple of kids, get on with it and stay in a job. You don't get divorced. Yeah. You do not have sex outside of marriage. What was it like for you?
So I actually was raised Catholic as well.
Oh, yeah.
Hadn't been practicing in many, many years. But
naughty girl.
It's the same. Say it again.
You naughty girl.
Indeed, we each recognize each other, I think.
We do.
Yeah. It is, I think it's the same for a lot of people. Your upbringing has a lot to do with your set of morals or values or whatever. They start to diverge when you start to come into your sexuality and into the raging hormones. And it's not the same for everybody, because environment plays a role in it. The lessons that you learn from your parents or don't learn from your parents or from school. And all of that has changed so much. I feel so bad for the youth that are coming up now. Like, they're taking away the sexual education classes. They're taking away a lot of books and banning a lot of books. And these are ways that kind of you explore what sexuality is and what it means, and you have conversations about it. And so it definitely, when I got HIV, I was never one of those people that thought that God was punishing me. I never believed that.
Yeah, me too. I didn't.
But I had patients that I took care of that did think that, and that did feel that way. And I used to tell people, and it's a lesson for everyone, if there are murderers and people who do all of these horrid things out there living life who don't have HIV, why would God choose you, just this nondescript individual, to punish all of a sudden? So it's the way you look at it a lot of times, I think.
And I think so. When I think about sexuality, there's what you've been raised with. And being raised Catholic, you just don't have sex before you're married, and you don't sleep about. And if you do have a boyfriend, you just have one. You don't, that's the kind of upbringing. Then you've got society that has a not an impact, but what am I looking for? Society talks about what sexuality is, and again, it's kind of similar to the good girls, but sluts and, good girls and bad girls and, how women should be. And then you've got
shaming,
the shame, around sexuality, because either you're anyway. And then you've got you as a person. So you've got your family, you've got society, and then you've got you. And how do you connect your relationship with sex? And I think that HIV forces you to do that, because this is what I mean by you can sink or swing when you have this kind of HIV kind of diagnosis. There's nowhere to hide, because either you have to address like your own sexuality, how you feel about that, what your parents kind of taught you about that, what society teaches you about that, and
Yeah.
somehow make sense of it.
Yeah. Yeah. And it's very much an individual kind of conversation that you have to have with yourself, right? Like, you can talk to friends, and you can talk to strangers on the street. You can talk to your doctors. You can talk to all of these people. But at the end of the day, you either live with and deal with the feelings that you have, or you repress them. And then it becomes this whole other set of issues. Like, I'm not a fan of talking about risk for HIV. I don't like the word risk. I think there's a lot of layers to it. It gives people a false sense of security because they don't do risky behavior. So there are reasons that we're vulnerable to acquiring HIV, and the types of sex that we have, and the reasons why we're having sex, and the things that we're seeking to get from sex play into that. So sex and sexuality are a huge part of who you come into and how you come into living with HIV, because I know a lot of women that just gave up on sex once they discovered their diagnosis. Like, they don't want to have sex anymore because of the fear of giving the virus to someone else, or someone else acquiring it. But now with undetectable is untransmittable, U equals U, that kind of takes some of that away. But that I always say that U equals U in and of itself shouldn't be the only factor that you consider when you're talking about having sex with HIV. There's disclosure. There is how a partner feels. There's keeping up on your meds so that you maintain your undetectable status. There's all of these little nuances and layers to HIV that it has an effect on you for the rest of your life, but it can be a positive effect if you choose to let it.
How long did it take you approximately before it became a positive? Like, was you like on the floor crying when you first found out? And how
I was just shocked. I didn't even have time to like process enough to cry. It was something I knew about it. But it's not something that I ever envisioned for my life. And so I was in shock for a long time. And then I was just in survival mode. It took a good 6 months before I started my meds because I didn't have insurance. And the medication is expensive without insurance. And so that was a thing. And then, so I think really at the end of the day, being a nurse helped me tremendously in learning to accept myself and dealing with the internal stigma that comes with an HIV diagnosis. And I always say it's kind of like I had a little bit of a cheat code because I was a nurse in an HIV clinic. And so it was very accepted, and people talked about it, and my patients talked about it. And I had all of these anecdotal experiences that I could lean on and listen to. And so it's not to say that I didn't struggle, didn't face stigma, all of that was still part of my journey. But maybe 4 years in, 5 years in, it took a long time because it's a journey. It's often not a linear journey. It's fluid. There's ups and downs. You're doing okay, and then you're not. You disclose to someone and they run and tell someone, and your feelings are hurt, and you're back to square, so all of those things, the ebb and flow of it.
What was like some of the things that helped you like feel kind of a bit more at peace, a bit more free, a bit more connected to who you are? What are those things that helped you?
Number one is remembering that I'm still the same person.
Right?
Like, I didn't all of a sudden become HIV. It's a condition that I have. It's a medical condition, a human condition that I live with. So reminding myself that I am not HIV. That's number one. But number two is remembering all of the things that you love and the hobbies. None of those things go away, and none of those things are suddenly inaccessible to you. Right? So I continued to skate. I continued
you skate?
I roller skate. I love roller skating.
Oh, that's so cool. Yeah.
I make jewelry.
Mhm.
In the last year, I've picked up painting.
Nice.
Um,
Yeah, I saw those paintings. They're lovely. Yeah.
yeah. And so, it is, they call them the resiliencies, right? So finding your
Mm.
resiliencies and leaning on those and making those work for you and filling your cup up when you get
Yeah.
empty.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Oh, that's lovely. Um, so if you had to give, just say the last question, then we'll sign off, then I'll talk to you afterwards. um, if you had to give somebody some advice, if there was someone out there that's just been newly diagnosed, what would you say, Bridgette?
I would say, A, um, you are who you are. HIV
Mm,
is not going to take that away from you.
mm,
And two, I would say to make the path for your
yeah,
journey a little bit easier, find a village,
yeah,
right?
yeah,
Because it's a very lonely disease. It can isolate you. Um,
mm,
it's a life process that you have to learn to now re-navigate, and a village can help you
yeah,
do that. So yeah,
yeah.
find your village.
Oh, that's lovely. I just want to quickly say as well, shout out to the Well Project because they're an amazing, amazing charity. They're based in America, but you can access them online and they do some wonderful work. And when you talk about community, that's a really nice place to start. This charity is particularly for women, but there are many other charities around for men and women, or particularly for the
Absolutely.
gay community, etc. But I think, as a woman, it is nice to have a community of women who really kind of understand
Yeah.
stuff.
Yeah.
And I wanted to say that actually I'm going to be speaking to a guy. I found this guy from Uganda who's going to be speaking to me on Aunty Lou's hour. And
Amazing.
yeah, and if there's anything, what would you like me to ask him? Is there anything in particular?
Oh, um, how does he find, has he been able to find his village? Because, you
Yeah,
know, for a lot of heterosexual males, straight males, it's very, very hard. They
yeah,
tend to hide
yeah,
because there's so much, like they get stigmatized from both communities,
yeah,
right? So from heterosexual women and from gay
yeah,
men,
yeah,
there's this
yeah,
stigma involved. And so
yeah.
I always want to hug them a little tighter.
Me too.
Hmm. Hmm.
Yeah.
Yeah, there's you were talking about other agencies. There's
Mm,
several agencies for that are for men. They're mostly for the LGBTQ community.
hmm.
But there's space for heterosexual men to be able to
Yeah.
find their way, especially for me, like Black men in particular,
Oh
because
God. Yeah, I
they are the
know. I
most
know.
affected by this life process,
Yeah.
this human condition. And so it's really important that they are able to find a space where they can build that community.
And the thing about it, Bridget, as you know, it is possible to live well with HIV. Like
Oh,
it is.
absolutely.
It is possible. I think, yeah. Maybe I'll end
It's
with that.
far
Yeah.
easier than, well, let me
Yeah.
not say that. I was going to say it's easier than people think, but it's not. There is
Yeah.
definitely a journey
Yeah.
from A to B to C. Sometimes you go back to A, but
Yeah.
you absolutely can thrive
Yeah.
and live life. I try to avoid saying a normal life because normal
Yeah.
is relative, but you can
Agreed.
live the
Agree, sis.
life that you imagine. Yes, absolutely. With
Yeah.
HIV, it doesn't have to it's not an end,
Yeah.
it's a change. That's
Yeah.
all. Yeah.
Oh, I love you. I think you're amazing. And I want to do this again with you. We go a little bit deeper next time. Bridget, I bow to the divine in you, sister.
I recognize and bow to the divine in you. This was so wonderful. You are so bright and just your aura is so welcoming. I love this. Thank you so much. I'm happy to come back.
Oh, wonderful. Have a lovely day. Bye.